How we doing, everyone? Mark Szymanski, owner, founder at Find a Tech, here with you today. In this video, we're going to talk about our custom client portal that we created in WordPress to make our business run a lot smoother and more effective. We're going to be focusing on the technology implementation in this video, but if you're interested in the business and the background, the decision-making process, this is actually a part of the MJS X Find a Tech series. All that means is that over on the other channel, my personal channel, MJS, there's a link in the description of this video to go check that video out, and it'll talk more about sort of behind the scenes and like what led up to actually creating this portal. But like I said, in this video, we're going to talk about exactly how we built it. So let's get into it. Okay, so I've compiled a bunch of notes, obviously, into this outline here. We're going to talk about it. We're going to go through it. We're obviously going to show the portal. We're going to be inside the WP admin, dashboard and everything like that. But I want to make sure that we follow a pretty standard and structured approach to this because there is a lot to cover, and hopefully I can answer most of the questions you may have if you're interested in doing something like this throughout the video. But if you do have more questions, obviously throw them in the comments down below and we'll definitely answer them for you. So to start off, I'm just going to give a little bit of context so you know our initial problem and what we were setting out to achieve once we decided that we were going to do this was we were hosting and maintaining websites, maybe like you are if you have a web design agency. We were hosting and maintaining websites for clients, but it was a little clunky. We didn't want to just invoice them every month. Obviously, that's a recurring fee for some sort of maintenance and to cover all the hosting costs and everything like that. So we needed a way to automate that, and we looked into some other solutions. There's definitely other ones out there. Colleagues of mine I know use different services, but we value pretty much above all else cohesion of branding and user experience, much like yourself probably does. So we ended up just wanting to make something completely custom, built within WordPress, but gives us all of that functionality, that cohesion, and really just have full control over something because we don't know what we're going to do in the future. And another thing we wanted to have was the opportunity to expand if we needed to and scale out the functionality of the client portal that we would have in the future. So based on all of the research that we did on different client portals and everything like that, plus the original stack and the way that we developed, this is pretty much what we've came up with. And the first thing that I'm going to talk about here is the costs. And the reason that I'm going to do that is because I hate it when I watch a YouTube video and you don't know if things are going to cost money to get done or not. So I'm not saying that this is free. You might be able to do this in a freer manner at least, but the way that we have ours currently set up, there's definitely costs associated with it. So let's talk about them. So you're probably going to need some sort of page builder. You could probably do this without using Elementor. You could probably use a different page builder. We use Elementor. We have been for years, and we have Elementor Pro. So we assume here that if you're going to use Elementor Pro, you're at least going to need the first license. So if we hop over there real quick, you're going to need at least their new plan here, which is $49 a year for one site. But if you're like us and you're already making other websites and you're making a client portal, you're probably going to have a different one. So hopefully you're already using Elementor or something that would work, be compatible with our solution here. But you're going to need something like that. So just factor in, either the page builder costs that you have now or Elementor specifically if you want to use that. So that's, just baseline $49 a year or some sort of alternative that would, fill the place of that page builder and such. WooCommerce Subscriptions is pretty much like the core of what we are using and the way that we really, it's revolves around the whole portal, the way that we set it up and everything like that. Once we figured out that WooCommerce Subscriptions could give us the functionality that we were looking for, we realized that that's what we had to go with. So that's $199 a year. I think it's worth it. We haven't had any bad experiences with it. Everybody has, mixed opinions kind of on WooCommerce and stuff like that. But for what we were trying to do and what we have been operating with for, I would say, the better part of like a year and a half at this point with the client portal, almost 2 years, it's worked pretty well. The last thing here is totally optional and is based upon your preference, really. We're going to use Stripe just as like, the main standard almost for WooCommerce or even WooCommerce payments. But what we decided to go with here is in the Intuit payment gateway. And that is a payment gateway built by Skyverge, I think, but it functions alongside QuickBooks. So we use QuickBooks Online in the business, and we figured that to just make everything as easy as possible, we would pick up this payment gateway for $79 a year. obviously plus transaction fees and everything like that. But the Intuit Payment Gateway is just like Stripe. It's a payment processor, but instead of those transactions going through Stripe and then having to go through bookkeeping and do all that sort of stuff, I talk about this more in the other video. This was just a great solution for us because it cut down extremely on the back end. And to be completely transparent, I'm basically a one-man show. So, I mean, I'm doing all that stuff. So it just helped in that regard. Like I said, if you want to learn more about that decision, go ahead and check out that other video. But as far as implementation, everything like that, this is just as easy as Stripe. And if you are using QuickBooks Online, I would at least consider this because it probably will cut down a lot of the back end work. So I will have links to all of those in the description. Some of them will be affiliate links, like we're affiliated with Elementor and some of the other things. So if you do use those links to sign up for any of the stuff, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you for supporting the channel. But let's move on to sort of a breakdown, and then we'll jump into the portal. So what we used. So just a breakdown completely. Hosting, we use Cloudways. There'll be a link for that in the description. Platform, obviously WordPress. Theme, Hello Elementor. The reason we use that is because we use Elementor, and personally when I'm developing, I don't want to have to edit things on the page builder side. Once I realized that there was a way for me to edit just in the page builder and really just like negate the theme entirely, I figured that if we were already bought into the Elementor product, then we should just do that. And also, you're never going to have any incompatibilities if you're using a theme built by your page builder. So there's other options. Obviously, we just use Elementor, but that's what you're going to see here as far as theme. And then plugins, we're going to talk about these individually as we go through this, but I'll just list some of the pretty much the main ones that you're probably going to need to do something like we've implemented here. So advanced custom fields, which is obviously, we're going to have custom post types, so we're going to need to work on the fields. Advanced post queries, that's a big one for customizing the query that you actually display in your post. We'll talk more about it. All 404 redirect to homepage, simple plugin, just because I didn't want to have to deal with like 404 errors and stuff like that. They'll just go back to the dashboard. Code snippets for just a couple pieces of snippet code, because we're using like WooCommerce, and it's not really, there's no like shop, like there is a shop, but there's not really a shop, just little things to do that. You could obviously use even the built-in Elementor snippet thing, or just, put it in custom, but just an easier way to do that for us. And then custom post type UI, we talked about it. We have custom post types on basically every site we create, but specifically this one, obviously we have it for the projects. You'll see LE custom skin. If you don't know about it, you got to know about it. If you use Elementor, it's a godsend because we're going to have custom cards implemented here. That's a very useful plugin. Elementor Pro, we talked about. Ultimate Member is how we manage the forms for logging in, so registration and login. And then also it's kind of built into the user registration, and we kind of tweaked the way that the accounts were and everything like that, like the account pages. We ended up basically using WooCommerce as like a baseline, but Ultimate Member really for the login and the user management. WooCommerce, obviously we need that as the base piece. WooCommerce into a payment gateway, we talked about it. Subscriptions, we talked about it. And then the one other plugin is WooCommerce Subscriptions autocomplete orders. We'll touch on that. It's just because it seems like we're having this issue when somebody signs up for a subscription, it didn't like autocomplete the order, so it was always like processing. We had to do a couple little workarounds, and I think that plugin basically fixed that issue where it just automatically completes, and we don't have like orders like still sitting in the queue because they just get renewed and then they're complete. There's no processing really that needs done. So that was just a minor detail. The only other tool that we used was Zapier, and that was for an integration, which we'll talk about when we get to the file upload feature that we integrated. And you could do it probably other ways, certainly, but it was just a way to get files like into like basically out of WordPress and integrate it with other things. If you use Zapier, you know what I'm talking about. We'll touch on it more when we get there. Okay, so let's move into how we actually built the portal. We've got some sections here. We're going to cover everything sort of by section, by page, but also just kind of the things that you're going to have to worry about, and it's the way that we went about it. So the first thing is we had a website called findittech.com. Obviously, this is just the customer-facing front, portfolio and all that sort of stuff. And we wanted to obviously have this portal. So the first thing that we did was we put it on a subdomain. Brief thing about it, you could probably put it on the actual website with Ultimate Member and everything like that. and the user management and everything, but we figured that it's a client portal. It's probably best to put it on a subdomain. And also in our research, one of the platforms that truthfully that we modeled this heavily off of was Elementor. So if you're familiar with Elementor and you have a subscription there, you've probably been to the portal my.elementor.com, and that is literally the subdomain that we chose. So if you scroll to the bottom of our website and you click my account, it's going to take you to the client portal, and it's just my.findatech.com. So you could obviously name the subdomain whatever you want, but this was the approach that we decided to go with. So it's a brand new application. So for us in Cloudways, we just cloned it, or we created a new app. I can't even really remember, but we made a new application on the subdomain my.findatech.com. So everything was fresh, and it's a brand new implementation and install of WordPress. Maybe something to note, obviously, is that you cannot get into this website or access it without having already registered and everything like that, and being able to log in through this site. We'll talk more about the user management at a later time, because I think it'll make more sense to kind of go through the design and everything first and the layout, and then we'll circle back to the way that we ended up doing the user management stuff. So let's log in to the portal and the actual admin thing, and we'll go through everything. The first thing that the client would see when they logged in, and what we're going to cover here first, is the dashboard. It's relatively standard. This piece in the middle here is just static for the most part. I mean, it's like title, text, whatever builder you're using. Again, we're using Elementor. It's pretty standard stuff here. Didn't do anything dynamic. These are just links out to the various things that we'll cover. The header is, again, simple, just a logo. And then over here, this is like a little image box, and then you click it, and it's an Elementor pop-up that is triggered on the toggle there. So this stuff is dynamic, obviously, based on the user. So if it's, that's like user first name, user full name, user email, and then that my account button goes out to the account, log out, logs out, nothing too crazy there. We have some navigation on the side here, and this is built into, so this side panel here, and then the top, that's built into the single. So if you're not familiar with that, I'm not going to go super deep into it, but I'll just kind of show you what the template looks like. If you're not using these, you definitely should, because this is like a hugely time saver thing in the theme builder aspect of Elementor. So I don't normally have navigation here on the left, but I figured that it was definitely possible. You just build it into this single page template, or layout template, and then you drop in the page content right here as a widget, the post content, and then that just gets filled in with obviously whatever you put on the dashboard page itself. So it's a pretty straightforward concept once you understand it, and I'm going to assume most of you guys do with whatever page builder you're using. So yeah, I just have this. This is like a global widget in this sense, and I don't even know what it is. It's just let's see, it's just an icon list, so it's not like you could probably make it a nav menu too. I can't remember why I didn't necessarily do that, but they're just links. So the next thing we can take a look at here is projects. Now when we go to the projects page, this is just a sample, but my methodology here was you have a client logging in and they have their account. I will show you the back end here in a second, but just for the front end of this is where the custom post types come into play. So we have projects, which is like the custom post type. We're managing the fields with advanced custom fields. We'll look at that. What you're looking at here on the front end is a dynamic logo, a dynamic post title. This is a link. In this case, obviously this is a web portal, but you could do this for other clients too. I mean, I'm just using a website hosting as the example here. But they click this button and it opens a PDF. It's a link to a PDF document for their proposal. So just another random tip in here, we use DocuSign, and then I upload the file to their project file in this portal. This is just a link out to their domain, their website URL if they come in here and they want to go to the website, just a nice little something that they can have there. And then file uploader. So we'll talk in depth about this as well, but this was an idea I had. Doesn't really work in our current workflow because we generally put them on this portal after they've their project's done. But if you want to limit your clients emailing you a bunch of files, you could implement something like this and then have it just drop into a Dropbox or a Google Drive or something like that. This is a pretty cool thing that I was happy to get to work. So this is just an Elementor form piece right here. And that gets sent once they press submit to my email. It gives like a URL that it uploads it to the site, but it also pushes it. So we'll talk about that. And then this is all wrapped here in a custom skin, like an LE custom skin. Okay, so let's just dive into the back end and talk about exactly how we created this. And the first thing that we did was we created the custom post type. So in this case, it's projects, as you can see right up here. And we had custom post type UI as the plugin in order to do this. We added a new post type. I'm just going to show you the settings that we have here. So we have project and then projects, project. These are just the labels for the menus here and everything like that. If we scroll down, there is some settings that we can change and edit. You can change like the menu position. You can change the little menu icon, completely inconsequential. Doesn't really matter. Down here, you can play around with this. I did this a while ago, and actually the way that I would do this now probably is just have title and not have editor or featured image. Personally, I like to make those fields in advanced custom fields, which we'll mess with in a second. You don't have to do it that way. You can leave the editor and featured image on. I just like doing it the other way because it's a little bit more consistent. But regardless of that, once you have that post type, then you'll have like a projects post type. And you could add categories as well. I don't really have a reason to add categories, but if you do add and edit taxonomies, then you can edit some taxonomies. I did create one at one point, but we pretty much just only have one category now. So it's pretty much the same thing. You put categories in here, and then you assign it, you attach it to a post type. In this case, it would be projects. And if we scroll down, there's a couple other settings. I normally turn hierarchical onto true, and then that's pretty much it. But again, there's way deeper stuff that you could do with custom post type UI and advanced custom fields. But for this application, you really don't need to go super in depth. So once you have that, then you need to go to custom fields though, and you need to create a field group. And specifically, we're going to create one for project in this case. So we're going to do project, and this is what we have. This could vary, obviously, depending on what you want to do. But the way that I thought that this was going to work at first, and we'll talk about, we're kind of going to skip the first one because that's closer to the user management thing, is the concept that we're working for is we want a project, like a single instance of a project, to be to have the data like within it, right? So we're creating, in this case, let's say that MJS project. So what were the fields that we would need? And we would need like a live URL. So that would be a URL field. Most of the things in here are relatively self-explanatory, the field name and everything. I'll show you an actual example, like the MJS one, so we can see the fields all filled out and everything. But the way that you have to create this is you just create these fields, and then you attach it, in this case, to like project down here. So we got live URL, we have the client logo, which is an image field, and then we have the project proposal, which is a file field. Again, you could get really, really creative with the way that the data that you actually store in these projects or in these custom post types. So you can, sky's the limit pretty much. And we'll talk about this real quick. The client portal user profile. So if we click edit here, the field type is a user. When we look into the actual examples of these projects here, remember this because this is going to be like how we assign that project to a specific user so they only see their projects on that page. And we'll couple it with something else on the front end and it works out brilliantly. All right, so here's an example of just one of those projects like I was talking about. This is the example one. It's just called MJS. Has the little editor up there. We don't have any, it's not mapped to anything, so I could have gotten rid of that, but like I said, it doesn't matter. Down here is where those fields were. So these are those fields. It's from that project ACF group. And we have client portal user profile. So they click the, like if it's just a drop down and you click that and you see all of the users on the website that are, you could change it by role too. Even I didn't really talk about that in the ACF, but you can change that. So you just pick a user. So in this case, I have it as this admin just so we can kind of see it. And we'll talk about how that we made that show up in the front end. We got the live URL in there. We have the client logo. We have the project proposal. And all of that is mapped to those dynamic fields in that loop. So it all just kind of comes together. Just to give you a visualization of that, we'll go back over to the loop here one more quick time. And we have the project loop, which is just the post title because it's like, this is like dummy data in a sense right now. I'll show you how to apply a specific project, but like project loop is mapped to, it's a title and it's got dynamic content in it, the post title. And then the view project, it's got the ACF URL field project proposal. So it's a file URL. And then down here we have in the website one, it's the same thing. It says view website, and the actual link is the URL, live URL field. And then there's also, I believe, a logo, but you just can't see it right now. Up here, it's an image, dynamic client logo. There's a lot of stuff you can do with dynamic content, obviously. So if I were to go into I believe it's down here actually, preview settings, dynamic content, we'll call it a project, and then we'll type in here MJS because that's the name of the project. We click that, we click apply preview. It's going to dump the data from MJS in there so we can look at it. If I would pick a different project, it would give us the data for that. So again, this isn't necessarily dynamic content for Elementor, tutorial, but all those cool things that you can do there, just use your imagination on how you want to lay it out and what you want it to look like. While we're in here in the custom loop, let's talk about the file uploader real quick. So down here, this is just an edit form, like it's a Elementor form. I just called it file upload. It only has one item in it, so it doesn't really look like a form necessarily, but it's a file upload. You can change all these different settings, in max file size and all that sort of stuff, whatever you want. You can do. I did multiple files because I thought maybe they'd be, uploading like documents and pictures and maybe videos and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different settings here for all that. And the way that I actually made this work for me in a sense is you come down to actions after submit, and you have, obviously, you should probably just keep collect submissions on. That just stores it on the site. Email and webhook. So email, I have it going to my email. I just say new file upload, and it puts all the fields in there, and it says, whatever settings you want down here. And what that does is it sends me an email just with the link. Let's say somebody goes in here and they press choose files, and they do just a picture, like a JPEG. Then they press submit files. What that does is it uploads that into my media library on the site. I'm actually not 100% sure if it is the media library or if it's just on the site. But in the email, it has a link directly to that on the site. That's not really ideal because I don't want to have to log into this to get the information. So the next thing that I wanted to do and implement was Zapier, and I created an integration with a webhook type thing that dumps it into, I believe it's Google Drive. We can talk about that now. So over in Zapier here, you could probably do this with some other sort of file thing, and I wish Elementor had something to just go directly into Google Drive, but all I did here was the trigger at Zapier was a catch hook. And then, I put that hook, obviously, like we saw over in the file thing, because they do have a webhook option. And then I just upload to Google Drive. And I think, I don't know exactly what the event is, but it's you're just uploading. So there's really nothing crazy here. I mean, it's it gives you what the event is, or, what the file is, and it gives you some examples and stuff. Zapier is really cool. I'm not going to talk in depth about it because there's just a ton more that you could do with it, but that is just the way that I decided to do this for the file uploader specifically, so I didn't have to go into the website every single time to download the files that were sent over. All right, so now we need to talk about let's kind of recap what we have. We have custom post type, we have the advanced fields, we have all of that put into a card itself. So what we want now is we need to go back to that projects page, and we need to talk about what this looks like. So on this page, we have, our title and everything like that. And then in this section here, the projects page itself is the same page for every user. It's not like a different unique page for every single person that logs in. It's the same page. It's just the conditions in which we show projects to different users. That's what we need to look at here. Because when you start, if you get to this point and you haven't filtered them like we're about to show you, then you would have a projects page, and you'd be wondering, well, I have all these different projects on here, but if different people are logged in, they're going to see all the projects. You don't want that. You just want the ones that are associated with them. That's the point of that one field in there. So it's actually really simple. You need one plugin to do this, and it is called Advanced Post Queries. Put the link in the description. The lifesaver. I have actually another video on the channel about that for a different type of application. You can check that out. But you have a posts widget here, and you'll see, in this case, you'll see the one in there. So we were talking about this earlier. We did custom, we did project loop. That was just the name of this little loop thing here that we created. Query is where the magic happens. So you got to make sure it's projects, and then everything else, just include and all that sort of stuff. Because you would get here in this section, and you'd be like, well, how do I filter out the ones that have a user? Well, the way you do that is you come down here, and once you have advanced post queries, you can have these different options. And in this case, we're going to use dynamic user, but again, there's a bunch of different ways you could use this. And you do custom field is current user, and then you say user data to compare to user ID, and then client user profile. This is like the name of that field. Basically, what we're doing here to kind of illustrate like what's happening behind the scenes is the page loads up, and then all of the posts are there. You don't see this, it happens instantaneously, but all the posts are actually there. The little query thing is saying, hey, who is logged in right now? And somebody has to be logged in because they wouldn't be here if they're not logged in. So it asks who's logged in. In this case, it's my username, and my username, my little user profile, is associated with only one project, which is the MJS project. And then it says, okay, so that custom field in this post, like in this that custom field in this one MJS post is associated with the current user role. And you define whatever that field is here, like this client user profile is specifically the let's go check it out real quick just so you know exactly what it is. It was that the name of that field. So like for instance, field group project, we'll go back here. So client user profile, right? Whatever is selected in that thing, you got to make sure that you put this field name into this section right here, whatever you name that, and make sure this is user ID. You might be able to use something different, but user ID works for the selection and all that sort of stuff. This is the cleanest way to do it. But that's the magic right there, okay? It's like if you didn't have that, then it would just show all the projects. You wouldn't know what to do. But that is literally the secret to the projects portion is if it has somebody associated with it, then this post widget will just show the ones that are associated with the person that's logged in. So that is incredibly powerful. You can use that for many different applications. But that's pretty much the projects portion of it. And yeah, a lot of dynamic stuff and a lot of the advanced querying there. Okay, so with projects out of the way here on the left-hand navigation, we have subscriptions. We can click into there. The interesting thing about this, obviously, is if you're familiar with WooCommerce, then obviously you have orders and you have subscriptions, and like in the My Account section, you have all that sort of stuff. What I did here and what we decided to do is if you're familiar with it, you know that like the default, it's like it has like a little navigation thing on the left. That's what like the short code actually has initially. It has like navigation on the left, and then you click on those, and then it shows you stuff like in to the right of it, right in the middle of the screen. Well, there's a little bit of code that you can, I think it's just CSS. We'll check it out here in a second. That you can get rid of that. It's easily accessible online too. And then you play around with that, and then once you have done that, you could use that in different places. The weird part about it, or I'm going to interject my thoughts on WooCommerce, I don't really like the way that they do the My Account section, because I wish they would just make them all like separate pages rather than being like whatever they're called, like end something. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but like My Account / subscriptions / orders / whatever, because it limits you. Because you can't like move this thing differently and change like the way the account thing is set up. Again, I've done my best to make it as good as possible, but I would have done it differently if I could have. So the point that I'm making is that I changed these little things here, and I made like buttons instead to go to, edit account details, edit addresses, edit payment methods. But if you look at the 3 pages, really, subscriptions, orders, and then the My Account page, they're all kind of like the same, but they're kind of different. It's a little weird the way that I had to kind of put it all together, but it works and it's fine. It's just, like I said, like I wish there was a little bit more that I could have done. I probably could have, but whatever. So anyway, the My Account page has this text on it. I don't really like it, but there's not really a way to get rid of it. And I just put these buttons here so they could go there instead of having the navigation, everything like that. And then obviously in here, you still have, your, these little links that I just didn't get rid of or whatever. But the way that I did it was I made 3 buttons, and these are on each one of the My Account pages, because if we look at it here, it is actually, let's just edit the My Account page specifically. So if you were trying to do something like this, this is the My Account page. So it has title, it has the short code, so the WooCommerce My Account here, Then I believe I might have put the CSS right in here. No, I didn't. I must have put it in the global CSS. We'll check that out in a second. And then in here, this is just a section with 3 buttons, and they go to the my account / whatever. If we take a look at some of this custom CSS that I put in, like the site settings portion, some of it's just to change like selection color and things like that. Some of it's to change like global colors. The one thing that we'll get to a little bit more is there's a lot of CSS that you will probably need to use if you want to change all of like the colors and specific stuff with Ultimate Member. I had to do it that way because I didn't get the full Ultimate Member. It's just a free version, and I think if you have the full version, then they give you like the paid version, they give you like UI styling. I didn't have any of that, so I did like a lot of CSS work in there. But specifically for that remove WooCommerce sidebar thing, if you just type that in, you can see it too, and I'll try to put this somewhere. But it's just this little bit of CSS here, and then it removes that sidebar and makes everything 100% like the width of it. So the point is that it kind of just, when you're on those account things, it just changes like the endpoint, you know, of what that is. So I have that in here, which is the short code. These are buttons to the other pages. And then the way that I did that was, if we go back over to the My Account, we can click on like account details. And this right here is like, if I remember correctly here, we'll see in a second, the middle part is still the short code, right? Like this, it's very strange the way I had to do this. Like the middle part is still the short code, no matter what it is, because it's all one page, but it just has, but depending on the endpoint, the short code shows different information, which is stupid as hell in my opinion. But again, that's how I had to do it. So if you saw there, I was on this page and I clicked edit the page, but it's really just kind of the account page. So that's all the same. That's why these things have to be down there, because if I wanted them on any page, then I had to put them on one page. There might be a way actually, I think, to get rid of that, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. I wanted some sort of like in account navigation anyway, so it all kind of worked out to some degree. This right here, this account details thing, I am pretty sure that I had to put in a, if I'm not mistaken, a code snippet in order to change that. Let's take a look real quick. My account page titles. So you might want to check this, and I'm certain that this is what this is for. I don't know what I did as far as Googling this, but I'll try to put these code snippets somewhere as well. But I had to figure out how to do this, and I can't remember, again, where I got it or whatever. But basically, it's like when the WooCommerce endpoint is edit account, it shows account details as the title. So up here, this is like set to page title, and it changes depending on what it's feeding it, in a sense, right? Depending on what the endpoint is, and then you are editing that in the code base based off of this. So when it's edit address, it shows addresses. When it's payment methods, it shows payment methods. It all worked out pretty well, actually, right? So we're on account details. It shows account details. We go to the edit addresses thing. It shows addresses up there. That was just to clean it up, because I'm pretty sure it just shows my account by default, right? And then it has this stuff in the middle, or it doesn't really show it. I mean, but that's the title of the page, is just my account. So I had to customize those just for cleanliness, I guess. You probably do it a different way too, but that's what I did. And then edit payment methods, so they can have their payment methods in here. And I'm gonna throw this in here because if you are building this, you're gonna have to deal with this way. I had a situation actually where one of my people that were doing the recurring billing, it was all working fine and everything like that. And then one month I was like, why didn't it, like it just kept saying, I kept getting emails saying that it tried the charge and it was declined. Then I looked, and the expiration date had passed, okay, on the card. So the problem was, and I can't really show you because it doesn't, you know, I don't have anything in here to kind of like show you, but if there was a card in here in somebody's account, WooCommerce for some reason doesn't let you update the expiration date, because that's all you would have to update. The card numbers don't change and stuff. It doesn't let you do that. So I had to do this wonky thing where, and I'm still trying to figure out how the best way to do it would be. I had to do this weird thing where I ended up putting in my card, and they actually charged my card on accident because they thought that it was there. It was a mess. But I had to put in a different card, delete the card that was there, and then put the card back in, because when I tried to put in a new card, like at the checkout, you'll see it, I'll run through that process. At the checkout of it, they had like, it's like saved payment method or a new payment method. I had them try to add a new payment method, and they knew, and like WooCommerce wouldn't even let you add a new one with an updated thing because it was the same. It's like some sort of weird bug. But just in case you ever run into that, because that was a pain in the ass. But yeah, so that's the weird payment method thing. But other than that though, the my account situation pretty much all looks pretty good, works pretty good. And again, I didn't put like subscriptions and orders in here because they're just, over here on the side, because that's, for subscriptions, it's like your overall first one, and then orders is like each time they're charged. So you would see a bunch of information here. You would be able to click on it and go into just some basic details about it and everything like that. Couple small things is this right here would say return to shop or browse products. Actually, I just changed this yesterday. But obviously in this case, we don't want them to do that. So I put in another code snippet that was change the text of the browse products. I mean, this is just what it's named on the subscription thing. So I looked this up and I was like, there's a simple thing that I can put in here to change it from browse products to return to dashboard. That's just the text of those buttons on there. And then there was another thing to change the link. So instead of going to the shop page by default, I just made it so they go back to the dashboard here. So you can just see, like, click that and they go back to the dashboard. Small details, and you could definitely do them all with a Google search, but those are just some things that I found there to be helpful and to really pull it together, make it a lot more professional looking without cutting corners or anything. As far as the rest of the stuff goes here, I want to build it out a little bit more, but there's a support page here. So these are just, simply embedded with Elementor, right? These are YouTube videos and they're embedded like different things. What I would say here is, and what I definitely love to do, I've used this concept on a different website, is like a knowledge base where it's like fully built out and they could search for questions and there's a bunch of like categorized questions, everything in there. If I had a lot more content, video content or text-based like answers to the platform, if there was like more complexity, I would definitely do that here. And I might at some point, but the plugin that I've used in the past is called Better Docs, and it has a pretty extensive free version. I'm sure there's like a paid features as well, but that's pretty impressive. So I'd probably build that in here as well. But for the time being, this is something like this is just straightforward and fine. And then obviously down here, I just have, simple stuff. This is all static stuff here, just email links, call links, and then a little simple contact form. So nothing super crazy going on here. Like I said, you could build it out more if you want, but that is, I would say, it kind of covers the design aspect and like the main components of how to get it to all work and, have projects and everything in there and everything like that. What I do want to cover now is go back into the back end a little bit, talk about the billing process, talk about, an example. I'm not going to go over every subscriptions, option, but I'll just kind of take a look at like how I set the subscriptions up, what a general flow is if you end up doing something like this, because there are still some unanswered questions as to like how I actually get them initiated onto the subscription and stuff like that. So I'll just give you some info and some examples on that. All right, so if we go back into the back end here, we go to WooCommerce, simple setup for WooCommerce, same type of thing. Once you get subscriptions, it just adds some more settings and stuff like that. Just simple plugin activations and setup. Not going to go crazy on that. As far as like actually creating the subscriptions, right? That's what they are, right? And a quick note here, because I don't have it set up to this degree, but I've been thinking about it, is let's go to an example of like Netflix. When you sign up for Netflix, you have access as long as you're paying, right? I don't know exactly how it works, but let's assume that like 2 days after your card is declined or something like that or whatever, you don't have access to the platform anymore. Let's assume that's how it works. The trouble with this right now, the way that it's currently set up for me, is if they don't pay, their hosting doesn't get like turned off. I'd have to notice that they don't pay and then go and like turn the server off or, block the site or something like that. So there might be a way to automate that portion. I'd have to think about it. There probably would be some sort of way that I could do that. But with that aside, the way that I do this is just to get them set up and kind of like on like the honor system, I guess. I mean, I'm getting paid. I'm just saying that there's no way to automate the whole shutting off of the server thing. This is like a separate entity in that regard. So it's just how they're being billed. So with all that being said, I have a couple different subscriptions just based off of like plans and packages and stuff like that. I would try to recommend to keep it a little bit more simplified, just so you don't have to like create and duplicate a bunch of projects every single time, or product subscription products. But we're going to use the $100 a month one as an example here, just because it's like the most built out one. So you have a title like normal, you name it whatever. You have an actual product page. We'll get to that in a second. The way that I did it was I put the description of like what the service was and everything in here. It's a simple subscription. It's $100. It's virtual. It's every month. You could do like day, week, month, whatever fits you, expires. One cool thing is that I was going to use it, but it doesn't really fit, is you can do a free trial for so many days. So like, I know people that would consider doing this, even though I could see some potential problems with it. You could, for instance, say $100 a month after 90 days, and then they sign up today and they activate the subscription today, but they get 90 days before they get charged. So maybe that's time to build the website or something. I don't do it like that, but you could do that like that. You could do sign up fee and stuff. This subscriptions plugin is pretty powerful. I'm just using kind of like a basic bit of it, but you could definitely do that. And then you could do like, obviously it's other stuff like product images, you can do product categories, all the standard stuff there. So once you have, again though, this is kind of like, if you're familiar, it's kind of like a post, right? In a sense, it's a product, but it's kind of like a post. You have the data in here, and then you can go use it on the front end. So if we go over to the product page here, this is just like a simple template that I kind of created here. And these are all hidden. Like I said, there's no shop page. So it's just like, they're in there, but they don't like go and look for more. So we got a logo here, we got the title, we got the cost, and then we have the information there. They add to the cart and they continue. Let me dive in here for a second and talk about, and then we'll show this process of like adding to the cart and everything like that. It's relatively standard, but the way that I have figured out how to make this as simple as possible, if you're going to create something like this and you're going to like send it out to somebody, the way that I do this is I take this link and I copy it. If you copy the link and you put it into like an incognito tab, then it's going to show you, in this case, the same thing, but you're going to be on the login page. The reason I say an incognito tab is just because that's how I test things. Obviously, you're not signed in to anything. It's like if somebody else were to look into, access this link. So I have the link copied. Okay, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. The way that I found that this works, and this is a little skipping ahead because we haven't talked about Ultimate Member yet, but the way that everything is configured here, and the redirection and everything like that, when you type in a link or you send somebody a link and they click on it and they're not signed in or they don't have an account yet or anything like that, it's going to show as this up here. It's going to do myfindatech.com/ in the question, like the query, redirect to whatever you put in. So it's got the little escape sequences or whatever in there. But what happens here, after I figured out what happens, if you log in right here at that link, it logs you in and redirects you to that product page. Now, that is cool, but you have to remember that the workflow, the process that I use currently is I send them that link, but they're not logged in yet. They don't have a user account. So we didn't talk about the registration page yet, but they need to register. So the way that I do that is, instead of sending them that link, I send them this link right here that I kind of just create in a sense, and then I send them. It's myfindatech.com/create account, and then it redirects to the create account page, and it has that link. So the create account page is kind of hidden because like we only really want people to create account that are creating accounts. But the point is that you send them to this create account page. As soon as they fill that information in, then they get redirected to the appropriate product, and that's all they ever see. So I thought it was a kind of slick way of figuring that all out and doing that after some experimentation, everything like that. So the point is that you could, with the redirection and everything like that, which is, I think it's honestly kind of built in once you do the Ultimate Member stuff. We'll talk about it. But that kind of works like that, and it works perfectly. So to just continue all of that there, what the process would be is a new user would come in, they would just have a freshly made account. This would be the first thing that they see, and then they would click add to cart, and then in here they would see it's just a standard cart. I also had it redirect to the cart. I believe that is just a checkbox setting, I think, in WooCommerce. You just add a thing to the cart and then you get redirected. So then once they're in the cart here, obviously they can, review all their stuff, and then they press proceed to checkout. And then it's a standard checkout. You could probably customize this with like a cart flows or something like that. But again, it's not like there's a high sales volume here, and they're never going to come back to this page probably. So it doesn't really matter to me. But again, it's a simple checkout. They have all the stuff. This is actually, yours might be different. This is the Intuit gateway, like I mentioned earlier, but you could use the Stripe gateway if you wanted to. And then they just enter their payment information. They click this little checkbox down here for the terms, and then they place order. They get a little confirmation, email, and they get they go to like a confirmation page, and then boom, they're done. They can come back in later on if they want. They could cancel the subscription if they want via the stuff in there, but everything is in there. Like the card is in there. They put it in. I don't know their card number, like that's the big problem that was solved in a sense, right? So one more thing to touch on while we're in like the billing section and like the WooCommerce subscription is you might want to just take a look obviously at the email templates, because they do add more when you have the subscription add-on and extension there. There's a couple more like subscription, obviously like the renewal is when the renewal is processed and everything like that, renewal completed and all that sort of stuff, canceled subscription, expired subscription. I mean, just take a look at it. They're probably fine out of the box, but you could just change like whatever here that you need to. And the other thing too, pertaining to emails, this is kind of really annoying that they don't have this built into this thing that costs $200 a year. But there is a concept that I have ran into a couple times where, not necessarily on the monthly side, because they can get an email as soon as it's processed and it's like once a month, that's not a big deal. But on clients, if you do anything yearly, whether it's web design, hosting, whatever, or something else, if it's yearly, like people are going to forget, So it would be nice to give them a reminder, a couple weeks out. Like I've had this happen to me. Like they were like, oh, I didn't know I was getting charged. Thanks for the reminder, jerk. And like I didn't remind them because I didn't even really know. There is an extension, another paid one, obviously, called Follow-Ups, which is $99. Because if you search like WooCommerce subscription automated reminder email, then they're just going to tell you to buy this thing. I don't have it, but I've considered getting it or something, maybe similar. I'm not sure if there's other alternatives, but they say that this is, this would give you that option, and probably a lot other things too. I'm not sure like what all the other features this kind of has, but the point is that it would at least alleviate that little bit of a problem. So just another tip for you as we're talking about all this. The last thing that I'll touch on here with the billing section is that there's some other snippets that we played around with here. There's autocomplete renewals. So I have this, and I gotta be honest, I'm not exactly sure which one of these worked. So I was having a problem, like I was saying, where because it's a virtual product subscription, I don't know if by default it like completes the order, because there's like a whole process of the order. Like the order gets placed, then it goes to processing, then it could do other things or whatever if you want. And then if it was like a physical product, you'd probably have to like manually, go in and say that, yeah, we shipped it out or whatever, so the order's complete. But because it's virtual and because I'm not in here and it's all like automated, I wanted to just auto-complete it. Like if the transaction goes through, it's good. Great. We don't need to do anything. So I was messing around with this. This is currently on. I'm honestly not sure if it's actually doing anything. The auto-complete renewals one. And then there's another auto-complete orders one. I definitely got those from just like a Google search. But like I said, there is another, earlier on in the video, we talked about the plugins. And there is a plugin here that we have called WooCommerce Subscriptions Autocomplete Orders. So I am not sure what that does. We can go to the plugin site, and I guess it's just literally from a GitHub thing. So I'll leave links in the description. But the point is that you might run into that, and it's not gonna be a big deal, but it's gonna be kind of annoying because you're just gonna have a bunch of processing orders. So you might have to deal with that at some point. All right, so our last bit to talk about here is, we have all that other stuff set up. We need users though, and we need to manage that whole thing. Obviously, WordPress has users, like it's built in. The trouble with that, the first thing that I ran into, because this is one of the bigger projects that I kind of decided to put some better user management stuff into. The biggest problem with the users is that it does not, at least to my knowledge, when I built this, and I'm pretty sure probably still now, there's no way to create a user like you would on a regular website. When you go to any sort of website nowadays and you need to create an account, you put your password in, But with WordPress, at least at the time, I'm pretty sure still, like the default thing is you don't create a password. A password gets created for you, and then like let's say I go into a WordPress website now. Normally, like the standard thing that I've always seen is like a login with a username and password or whatever, and then on the other side it's like create an account, and it's just an email. You put the email in there, it sends you a link, and then you come back and you like it creates like a password for you or whatever, and then you can change it like it's a random password. I just didn't want to deal with any of that. And I found Ultimate Member, which is a free plugin, and at least the base part of it, base case of it. And it allows for a lot of user management, and forms really is like the other big thing. So you can do, I think, a bunch of different forms or whatever, but you can do like default registration, default login. And then there's actually a whole side of this that I didn't even use. There's like a profile portion of it where you can almost make like what kind of is like a social media type looking deal. It's just like a more built out profile, way more than WooCommerce, which I was considering using, but the things that I wanted it to do, it was being kind of weird the way that it was dealing with the data that's in like the users table of WordPress. And then also there's some add-ons that you can get for Ultimate Member, but I wasn't like in the extensions thing here. Like I was considering getting some of this stuff, like even WooCommerce here, but that's paid, and I don't even know how much that is. It's probably like over $100 or whatever. So unless like, I don't like paying for things unless I know that like they're actually worth it and gonna work. But the point is, Ultimate Member seems pretty cool, but for this I didn't use any of that stuff, the profile like portion of it. But it's pretty powerful. I would at least give it a look if you're searching for something like that. But the point is that the biggest thing that I wanted was a way for them to create an account, right? Like and customize that account. So let's just look at that real quick. That like we saw earlier, where it was first name, last name, email, password. You can add more fields and stuff like that in here. You can build a form, and then you can just drop it in with a short code right into Elementor on whatever page you want. So this is how I built the registration create account form that you saw. And then there's like the login form as well. So like I wanted that whole customization experience. I didn't want it to just be whatever WordPress gave me or whatever Elementor gave me. And this is pretty cool. Like I said, there's a lot of different fields in here. You can do a lot of different stuff, and it's worked perfectly. Like, I mean, it's even got things like where you want to go, like redirection after login. You can say profile, which I wasn't using. You can do URL. So like, if you use this, I'm going to try to give you most of the settings that I changed, but if you use this, you just need to figure out what you want, and you need to change the settings accordingly, because there is a lot of fine tuning that you can do. So like the way I wanted this to work was on the login, redirect to a URL, and it was, the dashboard. Like when they log in, they're already they're already have an account. I just want them to go to the dashboard. But interestingly, and I'm not even sure of the answer to this, we're going to find out together, is over on the registration, like there is no login, or there is no redirection type thing, which is weird. I thought there would be one there. But the point is that like, there's options there. And then for that create account, you saw what it did. When it has that link in there, it already has the redirect thing. So it redirects to the product, and it all works out. So I'm not going to complain. If we go over to the settings here of Ultimate Member, I will say when you activate Ultimate Member for the first time and you're like getting it set up, it's going to want to create all these pages. So like user page, login page, register page, members page, all this sort of stuff. Now, the way that I ended up doing it was I didn't want the account page, so I deleted it, and I set the account page to home. Seems to work fine. I set the members page to home. That's like if you had like a directory of something. Again, really powerful plugin. Just didn't need a lot of it. There's a user page. There's a login page. Like, again, I just, like manipulated it as much as I could to get it to where I needed it to be. And it all ended up working based on my thing. So just to recap though, or to dig into this a little bit, because just to understand this, the login page is home because it's my.findatech.com. I could have I guess hypothetically, and I've seen other people do it, like I could have had like a splash screen or something there and then actually had like a slash login be the login page. Didn't think it was necessary. The register page is specifically called the create account one. I may have just renamed that one. Like they probably made it register. I just renamed it. The logout page is like a logout. Like, I don't know why it's logout page, but that's remember the one other thing that I had trouble with was, if you're familiar with the way that logging in and out on WordPress is, sometimes you get back to the actual WordPress like logo page thing where it's not, it's how you manage the site, right? It's how we're familiar with going into WP admin or whatever. But I didn't want that to be the case for anybody that was like a customer or anything. So this logout takes them to the login screen. It doesn't take them to that or I guess the home screen, I guess is the best way, but I'm confusing myself even, but whatever. So like same type of thing there, and then just password reset. So lots of stuff there, but all of that, like I didn't do anything super crazy to change any of that. It's just in the settings, so do whatever you want. So if we go over to users here, we'll just kind of look profile permalink base. You really don't need that if you're not going to use the profile thing. Username, first name, last name. I unchecked a lot of this stuff. If you're not going to use it, I would probably try to uncheck it. We got password links and stuff like that, activation link, lifetime. I mean, I don't know. I mean, just a lot of stuff probably that I'm not even fully utilizing. We have account, password account tab, bunch of different stuff here. Some of it I didn't even check off because I ended up just deleting that section. Like the way that it works would be that there's a short code that goes into a page, and that's what displays like the account thing or the user thing. And if you're not using it, then ultimately, it doesn't matter. And it even has things like, like cover photos and stuff like that for those user pages. Like I said, just there's a lot of different functionality. This is something you're probably going to want to check out specifically is access. So site accessible to logged in users. Like that's the thing. So this is the home page, and if you're not a user, you can't get past it. So you might want to make sure that it's like that because, those are the two options there, depending on how you're implementing it. You want the home page to be accessible in this case. And then if we scroll down here, if we see if there's anything else. So I don't think I really changed anything else here because you could get granular if you only wanted to protect some things, which might as well say it now is if you didn't, for some reason early on, if you didn't want to make it a subdomain, which I would recommend you probably do, you could put it on the same site and just probably really mess with these settings to make it so only certain parts of that site essentially were not accessible. But I just think this is a way cleaner and easier way to do that. So you have those settings there, and then it's got like password limit stuff and bunch of emails. Now, okay, so this is actually kind of important. So I have not probably configured this as well as I could. The trouble with this is that you now have two sets of email notifications that you have to deal with. So ultimate member is going to send, if I go in right now, or if somebody goes in and creates an account for themselves, ultimate member is going to send them an email, and then like WordPress is going to send them an email unless you configure it differently and stuff like that. I have some of these turned off, like account activation, pending review, like account approved, like whatever, but just look at it. I mean, you don't have to set it up one time, but that's another thing is like this, obviously we were just in the WooCommerce thing. This looks very similar to that, but this is all account-based stuff. So you want to make sure that for the best user experience, they're not getting like a ton of different emails, but you can edit these just like the other email templates, and it all works out fine. Just something to note there. If you do use Ultimate Member, that is a little bit of an annoyance, but not the end of the world. And then appearance. So these are all just like appearance things. Like you can change like this is specifically for the profile again, but a lot of different settings here. It's like a combination of like you build on the form, and then you also have some of the different settings here that you can do. So like if you were updating your profile on there and everything like that. Profile menu, so like if you don't have it updated, then you don't even need to, but there's like about tabs, post tabs. Again, it's like a social media thing. It's actually really cool. I just don't need to use it. And then registration form, so I definitely did change some things here. Probably I changed it to create account, just more specific, more standardization things there. And then like I was saying earlier, you could change certain things, like the text and everything, but I'm pretty sure you can't style it unless you have the main like I want to say we can actually go and check it out. So I'm going over to the create account page to talk about the styling, but real quick, let's talk about this down here. So you can restrict access to like the pages independently. Like you may have seen this little sub menu thing down here on a couple of pages and posts or whatever. You, again, echoes back to like you could put this on your main site, but again, whatever. But in this case specifically, create account, restrict access to the post. Yes, logged out users. That's another thing too, is like this just took a lot of, I'm trying to give you all the tips and everything like that. This took a lot of finagling because not only do you want to lock out people from entering, that's actually the easier part. You need to ideally lock out logged in users from going to this page. Like once somebody is logged in, you don't want them to go to the create account page, obviously. So that's what this does. It restricts access. It's only the logged out users can get in. And then what happens when users without access try to do it, you redirect them. So if I'm logged in and I try to go to /create account or whatever, then it's gonna redirect me just right back to the dashboard. So that's another thing. You can do all of that just from the UI and everything. But it's important to note that because when you're playing around with it, you're going to be like, where am I going? What's going on? What's the whole situation there? But once you play around with it a little bit and you get it exactly how you want it, then you'll be ready to go. Because this is kind of what it would look like if you sent them there and it's just a cluster. Because, in this case, I created a little thing, a nice little page for the create account. And imagine somebody going to this page, like for some reason, somehow clicking create account while they're logged in. Then they go to see this and they're like, what is this? Where am I going? It's just not good. So you definitely want to try to limit that stuff as much as you can. But this is a short code right here. That's what that looks like. I thought there was styling settings somewhere, but I guess there isn't. I'm not sure if it's fully compatible with Elementor. I guess not with the styling. But regardless, though, if you want to change like buttons and stuff like that and colors and everything and styling, I changed like the whole thing. And there's a lot of documentation in Ultimate Members knowledge base about like how to do it. And then you could just obviously look at the classes themselves if you were inspecting the code on the page. But relatively pretty straightforward there. They have some more miscellaneous settings here, like show asterisk on required field, profile title, page titles and stuff like that. I would just look through it. Obviously, you're going to have to go ahead and go through it. User roles. So this is also kind of the bane of my existence in certain instances. In here, it wasn't that difficult, but if you're, for instance, building a website for a client and then you want to give them access to the WP admin, dashboard here, but you don't want to give them all of the access, you might know that you have to change some user roles. These are pretty much the default ones, right? Like with a subscriber, and like once you have WooCommerce, it gives you a couple extra ones. But I think the way that it does it is the default that they log into with this is customer, okay? And then once they register or they subscribe to something, they get switched to subscriber. I think that the roles are pretty much the same, but the point is that you can kind of edit these, the way that you want and different things like that. And specifically like right here, like a customer, can they access WP admin? No. Force hiding the admin bar on the front end? Yes. Like you don't want them to see that. So there's a lot of different settings. Like there's a lot of shit in here. So like registration status, auto approve. That's another thing too. Like if you didn't want to auto approve people, like they just log in, then you could set it so you have to like require email activation or require admin review. I didn't even play around with any of that stuff to this point, but you could do that. You could redirect them to certain different places. Action taken after login for specifically, this is based on the role. Send them to here, send them there. So just a lot of stuff and a lot of different options there. I didn't plan on making an Ultimate Member tutorial there, but honestly, it is like running a good portion of it. All the user management and everything like that is really just straight through there. One more cool thing that I will talk about here and show you is that by default, I wanted to do that thing where like on the login screen, you could see your password. It's because it obviously comes up in just the little dots. I wanted to do a thing where you could have a little, click to toggle to see the passwords. So I found, just some code online that says show toggle password, on create account form. And Again, like I'll link it somewhere, or I'll put it in there in the description or whatever. But just some code to do that, and then I'll show you what ultimately that did. So if we're over here on the actual form that they would fill out, they would just come in here, and then would be like, okay, some stuff in there, and then they can click this, and it hides it, and it shows it. So just really simple, really neat, and it's also over on the login form as well. So yeah, I mean, I think I did maybe some CSS within there as well. I'm not sure, just to change the color and everything. But the code snippet, though, pretty much does all of that work. It's magic. I don't know. All right, guys. Well, that's pretty much it. I know there was a lot, actually, but, that's how we created the custom client portal here on WordPress. There's definitely other options. There's way more ways to build that specifically, but it works great. We're happy with it. And if we scale it at any time with different features and stuff like that, we'll definitely make sure to update you. Because I think it's a really cool thing, again, to echo what we were talking about earlier. It's cohesive with the brand, it looks clean and everything like that, because we can design it however we want. It's not some sort of off-the-shelf solution that you don't have a bunch of control over. You can use your different payment processors, as long as the core functionality of like Ultimate Member, in this case, and like WooCommerce Subscriptions is enough for you. I don't see a reason to not at least consider this option. And I hope that, going through everything, kind of giving you the scope and maybe some things that, you weren't sure of before, hopefully we were able to hash some of that out and give you a little bit more, at least stimulate the ideas flowing through your head if you're going to try to do something like this. If you have any questions on anything, if there was anything that we, maybe glossed over too quickly or anything like that, make sure to leave a question down in the comments. I'd be more than happy to answer. But that's pretty much it. We're going to be making much more content similar to this. We got a lot of projects that we'd like to, do similar things, tutorials and stuff like that on, tips and tricks here and there. So if you like this video, if you got anything out of it, make sure to hit that like button. If you're enjoying the content, want to see more of it, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And that's it. So thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you in the next one.